It's very nice to see everyone on the call, on the webinar. I think we will be starting right now. My name is Stan. I'm glad to be the person doing the presentation right now. So in terms of the structure of the whole thing, I will be sharing the presentation with the points that we've outlined as the topics of the webinar. It should take around 30 to 40 minutes in terms of the presentation. Then we will follow up by the Q&A. If you would like to ask a question, you can just post it in the chat, or basically in the Q&A part, you have this emotion on Zoom to raise a hand. If you would do that, we would ask you to unmute yourself, and we would basically just be able to have the conversation on the topic, on the question that you have. And yeah, we will have the recordings of the webinar as well, but to the ones who would essentially stay till the end of the whole thing, we will have a small present from the company. And I will also tell about this at the end. So in the first place, starting from the introduction, my name is Stan. Very nice to see everyone on the webinar. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Interexy. We are Web3 team augmentation and basically software development agency. We are providing blockchain engineers and mobile engineers and general software engineers to work with our clients directly. At the same time, we're building a range of projects, both in the Web3 space and the default Web2 spaces as well. We focus on healthcare a lot, and essentially we are headquartered in Florida. We have the entity in Dubai and UAE, and most of the development is done in Eastern Europe, which is Poland and Estonia at this stage. Right now, we have around 50 clients, 50 projects that we work on in parallel, different size of businesses, different projects. So I would essentially share a lot in terms of that, and like most of the things that I would be sharing, they essentially come from experience of working and serving clients on a daily basis. We're growing 3 times each year without any investment from any type of entity like third-party investment. So we are fully growing on our profits. And at this stage, we have around 150 engineers in the company, basically. So a bunch of reviews, clients, and everything. You'll be able to check out all the pages. You can see them on our website, and this presentation will also be shared after the webinar to your emails as well. Myself, I started as an iOS engineer in the first place. Started to freelance after that. So I used to work in a range of agencies. Then I started to freelance on Upwork, and then essentially when freelancing on Upwork, the customers, they were constantly asking like, can you do the Android version? Can you do the design? Can you do the backend? And that's basically how the agency started. We kicked off with the mobile application. We do them a lot to this moment as well. At the same time, I would say like through last year, heavily, we switched to the blockchain projects, Web3 projects a lot. And these are the things that we're working on a lot. At the same time, we've built more than 35 healthcare products from the start of the pandemic. So it's also huge for us, and we're generally a custom software development agency. Yeah, I'm into blockchain and Web3 myself a lot, active investor, and I have some crypto related businesses on the side as well. So we can proceed right away, basically, and start with the first part of the webinar. The first topic is why fixed price doesn't work in custom software development. I would say that custom software development is a very important part of the phrase of the equation here. I would definitely dive a bit deeper into that, and we will have 4 parts. So this third one will not be covered here. The first one is what is fixed price still on, why is fixed price still on the market and why companies want it. The second one is why agencies work on fixed price based, probably not major and high risk. The third one is why fixed price doesn't work anymore, and how to be agile and lean in the best interest of the product. So in terms of everything that I would be sharing, it's purely based on the experience from the market as we're doing the development part for our clients. However, at the same time, we have partners that we provide the fundraising services with, the market research services, the marketing services with the product as well. So we essentially on a daily basis in a day-to-day cycle of building the products from scratch, getting them to the market, iterating on them, getting market feedback, fundraising, and essentially helping people to improve the world with around them with their ideas and concepts. And we're basically constantly working on it. So the first part of the first theme is what is fixed price? Why is fixed price, still on the market, and why companies want it? Thinking it provides guarantees, often not. So obviously it's a very, very interesting thing for any type of client and any type of customer to go in and basically desire to have something built which is custom and built for a fixed price. And it's kind of, I would say, the confusion of interest here, as if you really want something to build like from scratch. And as a startup, you always want to have an option to be flexible in the process. You want to be able to iterate, to listen to the market feedback, basically, to improve the product all the time. And like something small, which is fixed, is all right. But I would say that any type of product that starts like from at least 2 months of development, it's already might be a very, very hard thing to basically develop something like this on a fixed price, outline like all the requirements, all these kind of things, and basically be able to come up with something final according to the initial specs that were outlined initially, meaning that it's essentially doable. But for the success of the product on the market, it's often harmful in terms of the type of software that you're getting, because even in this like 2 to 3 months like time frame of work, there are a lot of like consulting talks, feedback from the market, feedback from the partners on the product, and things like that. And it often not guarantees the essential development and completion of the product as you envision it in the first place. And I would definitely dive a bit deeper on this at the part where we will be talking about the development providers and people like that. But generally what I see, and being in contact with a range of agencies who are kind of in the same business as well, is that it's often harmful for the product to try to limit yourself in any type of like fixed price basis. It's basically like, from the point of view of the startup and from the point of view of the mindset, it's also harmful in a way. Thinking it's best with a lower budget. So that's a very, very interesting thing for any type of software development. And there is a very good analogy that you can get a junior engineer to work on your product, and you can get a senior engineer to work on your product. You think that junior will do the task all right because like he is cheaper and the task is probably like not very complex. However, in terms of the full build of the product, if you're working with the senior, not only he would be able to do the tasks faster, but at the same time, essentially, they will have less bugs, less risks. Senior engineer, he even thinks in a different way. He provides a lot of value to the product, to the business side of the product at the same time when he's coding, because he's been like through many products, and he can provide you with the suggestions in terms of the user experience, in terms of the navigation of the product, in terms of the optimization. So as business owners, we often have to work with what we have and balance things out, and obviously take some risks. For example, you might move forward with like junior engineers because it's cheaper, so you can save some more money for marketing and be able to like raise more once you get traction, and then basically build the whole thing from scratch again. But at the same time, if you're getting something like laggy, something that doesn't work well, especially if we're speaking about like fintech, healthcare, or blockchain, where people are very, very sensitive to the applications and to the software that they're using, because it usually works with their sensitive data like the credit cards and things like that, you heavily devalue the marketing dollars that you invest into basically the marketing of the product. Since if it crashes, if it has bugs, someone can like follow the ads on Facebook, go on your landing page, download the application from the App Store, and then not being able to sign up, and the application is going to crash. So the person would essentially delete the application from the phone, and you basically just wasted marketing budgets because you've chosen the development provider or to work with engineers that were not able basically to handle something like this. So this is a very, very important part which should be considered carefully, and that should be balanced out in terms of the software development, because like with software, software development, I would say that it's pretty hard to go like way above certain budget with certain product. It's not going like to be like millions as like you can basically have with marketing. But it's a certain like balance, a certain golden edge that you also would want to be in, to have everything all right and make sure that no marketing budget would be wasted as well. So the budget planning is something that is very interesting for a lot of like potential clients and customers out there on the marketplace when they're thinking about fixed price product development. I would also dive a bit deeper into that once we would be talking about like the agile part and things like that. Generally speaking, if you're working on the startup from scratch, you often would have a lot of changes to the product, and you don't want to have fixed mindset when you're working on something new and when you're working on something from scratch. Timeline planning, same thing as with the budget planning. There are some processes which allow you to be flexible and agile when you're working following the agile type of development. At the same time, with fixed priced, it's not might often be the best choice in terms of the functionalities, in terms of the things that would be installed and developed on the platform. Why agencies working on the fixed price base probably not mature? I would say it's mostly relevant for the agencies that work with custom software development from scratch. So if this is like the company that's only doing NFT marketplaces and they have like a set of features and they have like the internal framework to install the NFT marketplace, and they have these certain set of features which are pre-coded already, you can basically just buy it from them. That won't be the case, as with these type of companies, you actually might be able to get something decent at a fixed price. But at the same time, you obviously get in also certain inflexibility because you can't scale the product the way you want. Some of them, they might not willing to share the source code. If you have something interesting that you would like to add in terms of the feature to disrupt the marketplace or get the certain type of the audience to use your product, they also might be fixed on that. So it's obviously, it's always a trade in terms of the things that you're giving away and the things that you're getting. So in the first place, it's risks. If we're speaking about custom software development agency that basically works on the fixed price basis, and the ones especially that are providing you with fixed priced before doing like a very clear and clean process of writing out software specification, getting into the product, understanding the functionalities, understanding the end user of the product, understanding the market, what kind of variables do you have, like what type of things you actually want to achieve with the product. Is this just an MVP to fundraise and then you would be basically rebuilding the whole thing from scratch? Or is it already the functional MVP that you're planning to continue building on? Like it's a range of things that should be considered in terms of like providing type of like estimates and things like that. So usually if you're getting something like out of the blue for development of your product without like heavy discovery process, which is final and it fixed, it usually means that either the provider is trying to overcharge you, which is obviously not a good thing, or the provider is not like really understanding what the product will really take, and essentially at the end of the whole thing he will lose most of the profits from the product and probably just leave you with something unfinished, because like he or his team, they won't be more motivated to finish the whole thing because they've committed to fixed price and they were not able to deliver in that type of pricing. So yeah, it's very huge in terms of the custom software development and agile and startup environment in general software product build. So yeah, I would speak about the agile and everything, but usually if it's something from scratch, even if you're not a startup but established business trying to build a certain software product, since you see that the competition is doing it, or you want to automate certain part of the business, or you want to get certain audience to become the customers of yours, with this like piece of software, which I also kind of consider the startup development as like this is the product from scratch and something that's basically new. You also want to be agile. You definitely want to work on the market feedback. You definitely want to iterate, and you definitely want to have the provider with the integration of these processes essentially inside the development work. Industry expertise as well. So this is huge for any type of development that you're planning, and any type of people who might be on board as well in terms of the expertise and things like that. And usually like discovery process, if you're doing it with some type of company, it's a very nice way with investing not much, not committing to the whole thing, to understand if they understand the industry, if they really understand what type of things you're trying to build, if they really understand like the goal of the product, as you would usually be able to see that once you're working with them on the discovery process. You won't be investing much at the same time. And the best thing, if they have like a decent discovery process in place, you would be able to take everything that was made by them, go to any other type of development agency and basically get estimates from them and understand like if they would be able to build something like this. And we had many cases like this where customers were coming up to us, especially with Web3 and blockchain projects. Hey, I've started a discovery process with that other agency. In the discovery process, I saw that they don't understand blockchain very well. It's a huge pain point for me, and I want to work with a team that won't be learning on my money, that know what are they doing, will be able to consult, have built these type of projects before, and will be able to increase the success chances of my build and my development essentially. Why fixed price doesn't work anymore? So it's a pretty interesting and huge topic, as well as like I'm sure that everyone on the call saw like how fast the world is moving in the last like 2 to 3 years. It's just crazy with different events and things, and like businesses coming up in 1 year with 400 million valuation because of like pandemic and things like that. So crazy things happening in terms of that. And like market is changing fast, and the teams, the companies that are able to leverage that to build something fast to test this out and get like initial revenue fundraising from the market to basically continue with the build, they are the ones that like having the most success with the whole thing. So in this type of environment, you definitely don't want to be fixed. You want to be flexible. You want to be able to get the feedback from the marketplace, iterate on it, and improve the product you're working on. So the first one is market changes speed. I mentioned that already. New technologies and framework. This is a pretty interesting thing, especially if we would be talking about blockchain and Web3. But really, in terms of like any type of front end, web, or maybe like backend development, you have new languages, you have new frameworks that are constantly coming out that improve the speed of development in the first place. And at the same time, they can improve the security of the product. For example, they can improve the like how fast the product works by itself, and how fast it actually to like add new functionalities, like fix issues, fix bugs, and do things like that. So this part is pretty huge as well. And in some cases, like if you are in between the versions, you even would be able to jump from one technology to the other, speaking if some type of frameworks, or in some cases to even like different development technologies. The third point is inflexibility equals to death. Yeah, so in this market, that's definitely like that. Every business pivots, and every business has some changes in the process. If you would if you would look on Facebook, on Instagram, on any type of agency, really, like there are agencies out there that have been there for like 150 years, and they're still working to this date. So like imagine how many times they change the offering, their service, their expertise through these like 150 years to be able to stay as an agency at this stage and be able to provide digital services that like came up 30 years ago. So this is huge. And ability to work on market feedback. Yeah, so with the fixed price, you're really in a situation where you can't like add some things a lot or change some things a lot. You basically provide like a scope and people are working on it. So you close the ability to give the product to test out to some type of the test audience. You can get people from like Facebook ads, from Google ads, or maybe like you have like some clients of ours, they also test out the products in between the close group of friends and family to give some feedback if this group of friends or families essentially included in the potential audience of the product once the product is launched. This part is very important as well. And as I say, like every feature, everything that we're thinking on would like be used by the market. Everything that we're thinking on it is an assumption before proven otherwise. So we need a clear market feedback that some things are usable and that the product is actually valuable. And based on like stats, users, they would often use like 20% of the functionality of any product most of the time. So like it's a very tiny portion of the users that would be using like all of it. And it essentially works in connection to most of the products out there. If you would essentially think about like yourself as well, like if you're using certain apps, certain products, and I'm sure you do, like you're probably using 20% of the functionality of the whole thing most of the time. How to be agile, how to be lean in the best interest of the product. Yeah, so huge thing is iterations. That's why we're working on Agile and Scrum, and like I would say a lot of the agencies they do. And I would say that the most important things in terms of the iterations is being able to test out the product, not only like once you finished and once you launch the whole thing into the market, but when it's like a demo version, when you have certain parts of the product finished, you should be able to have a demo of that and essentially be able to share with the test audience to get the feedback from them. Work on feedback and the proof. Yep, gathering feedback during the development process. So essentially inside Interexy, we have like a full process for that to improve and increase the success chance of the products that we're working on. And there are like many ways of how you can acquire essentially the audience to use the product and to make sure that they provide you with some feedback, and you can give them something in exchange. You can add them to some type of like whitelist or like promise them something which might be like a very nice thing to acquire that audience at that stage. Implement best practices from the market. So there are a range of books and like there are essentially a range of successful startups that are being done on a daily basis, I would say. At the same time, there are a range of startups that fail, that are unsuccessful. And as everyone knows, obviously, most of the products, they are usually unsuccessful. So you can speak with like founders and CEOs of the startups, have some information from the books as well. And it will like provide you with a really nice insight in terms of like what people that actually succeed do. Yeah, so this part is essentially about market research. Despite the fact that I run like a development company and we're essentially engineers, even as engineering team, the better we understand whom we are going after, the better the product is going to be. I think you would agree that like the user experience for 15 years old, like teenagers in college or in high school should definitely be different from the ones from the audience of seniors. And like when you provide this data to the engineers, when they know this beforehand, and especially like to the project manager, to the QA team as well, to the designers, that's like hugely important. To the UX person on the product, that just changes like the whole thing a lot. So like it's very important to do these kind of things. And even if you thought that like one audience would be using the product, and in the process it kind of changed based on the research and based on the feedback that you were getting from the market, it's totally all right as well. And usually like when we only start to work on the product, there is still like a room for change. And even if we're like several months in development, there are some things that you can always like change or improve on the UI and UX to be more appealing to the audience and make sure that the marketing is the most effective, and that retention, which is huge for like any type of SaaS businesses or software businesses, apps, is on point as well. Why it's crucial for startups to be agile to win? Iterate. Yeah, I've said about this a lot already. That's like a very important part. Even if like nothing is in place and like you don't have anything, you basically just have idea and you have some money to invest, through iterations with the right provider, and if you would actually care, you would still have an option to fix everything and basically work on anything and make this whole thing like come true. If you would be essentially open-minded and be able to iterate and change on things and listen to the feedback of the engineering team, of the team of marketing team, the team that's doing like the market research, working with the product once it's been developed, like it's huge for the product. Everything is an assumption before I get the feedback from the market. That's something I mentioned already. We see it with some of our clients, and I've seen it like with people working with other agencies as well. And like you often can find products that being developed that like have a bunch of functionality. So they launch the application, it's like home screen, they have like 15 buttons. The user, he downloads the app, he sees 50 buttons, he just gets scared, and he basically removes the application from his phone like right away. For the MVPs, it's crucially important to know whom you're going for, what's the most valuable functionalities for the product and for these people, and just focus on these functionalities. Implement like nothing else, because as more you essentially spread the focus, like the more you spread and limit the chances of the success. And at the same time, like it makes the testing and iteration and improvement very, very hard, as you won't be able to like focus on something and you won't know what exactly people like, what exactly they don't like. And like, in order to be able to iterate, you basically need to get the analytics, and you need to know how to improve on that after that. So less is more, that's for sure. Every business pivots, yeah, very important thing with the software products, with the functionalities and things like that. If you would check out largest players on the marketplace right now, they constantly have pivots, new functionalities, they add, they remove stuff, they do A/B testing, so a lot of things. Test and succeed. Yeah, so have milestones, have goals, move to your goals iteration by iteration. It's all right to change things based on data, not based on something that you think or some people that you know think, based on data. That's essentially the best thing. Part 2, which is how to make remote engineers care as in-house people. In terms of the first part, we will have Q&A after this second topic, so you will be able to ask questions if you have some. I think this part, it essentially became most relevant for companies after the pandemic, because everyone essentially went remote. And it's a pretty interesting thing, because we were remote before the pandemic, and right now like the whole organization is remote as well. So like with HR teams, with people in different locations, we're hosting some events from time to time. We have the gatherings inside the co-working spaces as well. And in terms of the core team, we meet a couple of times in a quarter as well. But in general, like the work is remote, and like if it's remote, you can really not understand if the person is working like for 2 hours a day, or if he's working like for 10 hours a day, like very, very hard. You can also see the results, and results for the most of businesses is usually a lagging metric, and it's not a metric which essentially consists of the work of one person. It's usually coming from the work of multiple people, and you would often like not know who is essentially doing well and who's not. So we have several points here, which are alignment of goals, proper leadership, accountability, ultimate actionable steps based on what we've done and what I've seen other companies like ours done and our clients as well, and value of proper HR and how we take care of it for our clients, since like one of the service that we do is team augmentation, which is essentially providing engineers and people to work as the direct employees of our client. And there are a lot that we are doing in terms of like HR and things that like to live that way from our clients and basically take care of it on our end. So we would start with basic alignment of goals. I would be suggesting some books at the end of the call as well. One of them is Leaders Eat Last. And I would say that I think in the recent edition of the book, the author has a pretty interesting view on millennials and people who come to work like right now. And that like these people, they focus a lot on actually making sense and making their work valuable in terms of like the things that they're doing. And at the same time, it's not basically just faking on the workplace. Like if they don't like something, they would be able to stay for some time, but they would probably leave. And it's very, very important to essentially align the goal of or the goals of employees with the goals of the company, and really show the person how they can essentially grow personally and professionally inside the organization. So the first thing is sharing the vision. It's great to work on something big. Like no one wants to work on something small, like, or no one wants to work like for the desire of the founder. Like, hey, I want to like make like 2 million in profit this year. Like for people, this goal is not pretty interesting, and people should be able to work on something great that excites them, that kind of keeps them going, and they can kind of refer to once like they're tired or they have some issues, they have some problems and things like that. So I would say that like drawing pictures in the mind of the people is really, really great. And like as some people say, like working on the small thing takes the same amount of effort as working on something big and large. So it's always very, very nice to have people working on something like great, which makes sense, which provides a lot of value to the people around us, different companies, and on our planet essentially as well. Understanding why the person is working with you, essentially huge as well. The person can work with you because they like you, because they see they can grow professionally, because you overpay them, because they like some of the clients. So different things. This is something that should be figured out either. I would say that like in most like startups and smaller companies, that's the job of the CEO. Then that's probably the job of the person who is like responsible for HR for people inside the company. Aligning the goals of the specialist with the goals of the business. This part is very important as well. So like we have regular talks inside Interexy with all of the employees in terms of the feedback, in terms of the things that they like and don't like, and we do it like with our engineers as well. And if you're even like working with some freelancer who is remote and who is sitting like in many miles from you, this is definitely a talk worth having, because like many people, especially engineers, they might not be able like to come up to you and talk about the issues, and you would see that like they are angry or they're not like motivated and things like that. And it would obviously involve like, it would obviously influence the company, the product. And this is something that you can essentially fix just by talking to people, especially if this is someone younger. And like at this age, there are a range of like engineers who are like young, 25, 30, and they're very, very good at what they do. Outlining a clear growth plan. So yeah, if the person won't understand that like they really would grow inside a company and where the company is going, it also pretty like motivating to work, even if you're working with someone remote. Even like when I was working as a freelancer, I used to do like way more work for people that were outlining to me like, hey, we need to do this, then we will get there, we will fundraise this, I have like this and that partnership, we can set this up, I can make you like this person once we succeed, and blah 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 and things like that. So having a clear trajectory of how the person can grow inside a company with the growth of the company really helps as well. Leadership practices and resources. So I specifically did not title these management practices, as I think leadership is huge. I'm using this word a lot on this webinar, and being a leader to people means a lot. There are some books on the topic that you might be able to check out as well. I would say like the best ones from the ones that I've read, Leaders Eat Last and Tribal Leadership. They talk a lot about the things that you can implement right away. They talk a lot about psychology of leadership. They share a lot in terms of leadership in like army and things like that. So yeah, it's very valuable to basically run any kind of team, any type of organization as well. So leading, not managing, is basically being there for your people, being emotional sometimes, being vulnerable, being basically a human being, and at the same time, like not becoming like friends with people of yours, since it's obviously a business, and business needs money to run, and no one is going to work for you if you won't be paying them. Lead by example. This is a pretty important part as well. It's like default thing that you can basically meet and face, like start the first one and leave the last one. And I would say like with the remote setup, it has it's like very interesting implementation. So like one of the companies that I know that's doing very well as remote organization, and the culture of these companies very strong as well. I would say it's like one of the strongest cultures that I've seen in agency in remote type of business. Founders actually shows that he cares for his people, and they have this thing in the company implemented, which is like a stop time. Like at 8 p.m. people should stop the work, and if someone is writing him messages after 8 p.m. he says something like, "Hey, thank you for writing this message. Do you remember that we have like stop time? I really care for you. I don't want you to burn out. I know that you probably have something to do, you have some work, but I know from my experience by myself that over time this would like become very hard if you keep like sustaining and working after 8 p.m. and things like that." And he basically asks people to stop messaging and stop working after that time. In the first place, you showed that you care, and secondly, it's a very nice thing, because like with the remote type of setup, people they get used to, like it's not like the time frame as it was before, where like you are in the office, there are working hours, then you get home and you're basically resting. Like many people, they essentially spread the working day through the whole day, and that's why like over time they burned out a lot, since the differentiation in terms of the work and in terms of leisure time basically stops. So this is something as a leader that you can essentially install in the remote or organization, and make sure that people have the working hours and people have some leisure time that they can spend with the family, to make sure that they are well rested and they are ready to work tomorrow. Emotional connection and friendship. Yeah, so important as well. In the since the pandemic started, we've been developing a lot of healthcare applications in terms of emotional health and things like that. And I would say that like many people, they are really not used to something like this. We are social creatures. We definitely need someone around us to be able to talk, to be able to ask something, to share something. And we even had people in a certain stage quit, as they were saying like, I can't work like remotely, it's very hard for me, and things like that. So we'll make sure to install certain types of activities where people can see each other, and even if it's like fully remote, if people are in different countries, so they can have some time to have calls with each other that are not like connected to work, like some fun activities, some quizzes, things like that. things that can really bind the team up, improve the connection, and it's always easier and better to work if you know, like, if you know other person, as you can expect certain things in terms of like their emotions, how they behave and things like that, and you won't be overthinking things, because like it's a huge thing when someone says something to someone else and someone else thought that they were arrogant or they were rude, but it's just how the person behaves, and then like the whole day is ruined, and maybe it can like create some type of friction inside the department, and everyone is remote. People always like chat a lot, and when you chat, you don't like pass the emotions. So we actually, when we have video calls in the company, we have the policy that web camera should always be on, to people to be able to see the faces of other people, not just some pixels on the screen. This is a very, very important part. And when people communicate to each other, they will be able to see facial expressions as well. And one other thing, you can ask people to not mute themselves at any moment, if then even if they're not talking, as it makes like the focus of people who are on the call with you, who are working with you, better as well. Accountability, clearance, the ties checking system. So yeah, I would say that this point could be solely measured on the results of the person. If you really understand and know like what type of the result should be coming from a certain department or certain group of people that working on things, if you set like clear KPIs and management in place, you wouldn't be able to track those things down. But I would say that in the remote setup, since the whole thing happened, basically being able to track things and gather analytics and work on them and iterate on them, not like as a part of the product, but like as a part of your business, is pretty much like a very important thing and huge at this stage, because like you generally have like less control over people that you're working with. So you can't like come to the office and see if someone is working or not, or if someone is out of office and things like that. So this part is definitely something that you should implement in each department. I've seen like crazy things in terms of agencies and in terms of implementation of something like this. I even know of one like engineer agencies. They have 0 calls, and it's all about recording videos, communication through chat, and tracking different metrics, and have like a bunch of touch points during the day of these engineers and like the other people who take other actions inside the company, and the whole thing works. So it works pretty well with almost 0 communication inside the agency. And it's obviously it's a certain scale, since like it's not like one project, it's like 20 to 30 projects at the same time. So like there are some disadvantages, but there are some advantages for people who can like set the whole thing up. The system followed by all. So in terms of tracking and analytics, one thing that should be implemented definitely, that people will track their things and do it consistently. That's very, very important. Like without that, the whole thing is just not going to work. No reschedules, no nothing. People should know everything happens on time every time. So it's basically connected with the part where you should be leading by example. So sometimes when we are remote, we can like forget about something. We can start to go on the appointments during like the work day with like doctors and people like that, since we think by ourselves that like we are remote, so we can work later in the day and things like that. That's something that should not happen. Discipline is something that's being built from the top of the company, and it's also essentially a pretty important part. And you should always show that you comply in the first place, and it will solve like a range of issues, a range of problems for you. Clear responsibility overview. So that's essentially outlining like what each person is responsible for. I would say it's also connected like with the management to remove certain things where people like communicate with each other, and they basically like don't know who is responsible for what. So I would say that this part definitely should be taken care of as well. Like less people can talk, the less people can see each other, less they can understand the emotions of the person on the other end, the worse the whole thing is going to be in terms of solving conflicts, issues on the workplace, inside the company, and things like that. And having like everything outlined clearly in terms of like you are responsible for these things and you're responsible for these things, it just removes like this part from the equation and makes things easier. I would say that like the companies that have systems outlined for each process, they really have like a lot of leverage in the current type of like remote working. And the companies that used to like kind of emphasize a lot on figuring things out on the go, and they have like larger teams, and maybe they like add new people or they remove some people, it's definitely a lot of friction, as it's harder to basically come up to someone and ask about this or that process. So ultimate actionable steps, the first one is the task trackers. You have the option in Jira to do so. I would say that Jira is more like an engineering thing. You have things like Hub stuff, and they're essentially a range of softwares that you can install. Some of them, they are like checking out the activity, they're doing screenshots. People can outline the tasks that they're essentially working on, and you will be able to sync on that after like a week, or after months, or at the end of the quarter. Screenshots taken, yep, activity trackers, Jira, Trello, and Asana. I would say it's essentially very, very tied with like the culture of people who work inside your company, and the culture of the whole company as well. I've seen these things work. We use some of them ourselves, and they also remove friction from the process. Some people, they want essentially like the installation of things like that, but they would always, they always should be presented in the right way. So for example, like with the system that tracked hours and the tasks, you can only like, you can not only like check out how much the person works and the activity of the person, at the same time you can see like what type of tasks the person is spending the most time on, and then you can spot the inefficiency in terms of the processes inside the business. And basically by doing that, you would be able to automate something, to buy some software to do that, or basically remove certain process because like it's older, or improve that process. So over time, you can build a lot on that just by installing like task and time trackers to certain departments, and basically see what kind of things people are working on, and what kind of things are inefficient, and what kind of things you can basically improve. Value of proper HR and how we take care of it for our clients. So I would also say that companies with strong culture, they win a lot in the current setup of remote work, especially the ones that had this like setup for remote work in terms of the culture already. So you won't be able to remove things like flying the whole company to certain area like once in some time, so people can see each other, because nothing can basically remove the option for people to be able to talk in real world. However, with certain activities, with good HR processes inside the company and things like that, we would be able to work a lot on this and install like certain things too. So with our clients, one of the engagement models that we have inside the agency is providing software engineers directly. And often they become members basically of the teams of the client. And we specifically apply account managers to look over the process, talk with the engineers, get feedback from the client, and work on that feedback with HR team often as well, to make sure that everyone is satisfied. And like often for some of our clients, we were providing tips on how to make things better in terms of actually working remotely with the person, how to install like more organized approach in terms of development processes, how to make it a bit more human as well, and how to align the goals of the people that they took from us, so they can essentially work even better on the product and care about the product and provide even more value to the product than they're doing right now. HR processes, they are very important in the equation as well. Check-ins, growth plans, socialization. So these are the things that you can install one by one into the process. So I'm not offering basically to come like tomorrow to the company and just install the whole things. You can check like 1 to 2 to 3 things and see how they work and things like that. Like one of the things that you can implement tomorrow is basically create the channel where at the end of each week or at the end of each day, people would write certain things that they noticed about the employees and other people inside the company, which were positive, to kind of appreciate people around them and build like more human connection, like an example. And you obviously would always need to start by yourself, like just create this channel like, hey, I saw John was doing this today. It was nice. I saw Eric saving the deal with our clients, like through his like awesome sales skills. I saw John helping like Liza in terms of some things that happened on the project and things like that. And you would essentially notice people. It would happen on the Slack channel, and it would be something that people would really, really appreciate, and after some time start to do by themselves, as it builds the connection as well. Other people see that their work is not basically being done and no one sees it, because for some people it's actually important for other people to recognize the work and appreciate them and essentially show it to them and talk to them about these things. Internal processing in remote realities: camera on, not on mute, X amount of hours near the work desk, specific time to respond, etc. So these are, I would say, more harsh things. But like, if you have like the problem with people like not working much, not caring, I would say that the first thing is HR and culture. Basically just talking to them, fixing these things out. Some of the things that we use and some of the things that are being used by other agencies is, as mentioned, like, well, on each Zoom call, camera always on. That's a rule for everyone in the company and yourself in the first place. Not on mute as well. When everyone is not on mute, even if they're not talking, they can't like make noises. So they would probably sit straight and listen and focus on the talk. X amount of hours near the work desk. So that's basically meaning that if you have like a flexible schedule, and I can confidently say you that if the company is remote, everyone has flexible schedule, you can set some type of rule that like 5 hours in the day, you're 100% at the work days, at the work desk. You respond to Slack messages fast, you're working fast, and you're essentially in this fast pace in terms of fixing and solving things, and specific time to respond as well. So this is something you can set up too. 1 hour, 2 hour. Huge thing in terms of these like remote things is that sometimes people are blocking processes a lot if they are out and like they take some time to respond, and that can block like the whole chain of figuring things out. There are some things like in Slack or Discord, if you're using that, you can quickly get people on the call into a huddle and make sure that they will respond right away and solve the issue right away. How much proper team augmentation stuff and provider can handle for you, how we do it. So yeah, in terms of this thing, we work with different types of companies. It often might be startups that don't have like proper HR process at that stage, and often they don't have proper development process installed. At the same time, it might be larger organizations that used to work in office and now they're forced to work remotely. They don't have like processes for that. And we help both of them with essentially, once they get in our engineers and our people to work on the product, we apply account managers and through them, we make sure that most of the things that I've mentioned on this call, they're getting implemented one by one to improve the businesses for our clients. As obviously, if our clients are not successful, we are not successful ourselves, and that's our first duty, to make sure that the clients of ours are successful in the whole thing. So it's arranging things with account management, HR, and even engineers often telling the clients on how to set up this or that thing to make sure that people in the company, they care more. So that's basically it. I would say it took 15 minutes more. Let me know if you have any questions. I would probably go through the chat and ask and answer everything there. And if you have a question, feel free to use reactions on bottom of Zoom and click on raise hand, and we will be able just to talk. All right. Can you provide some info on how you do your requirements investigation? What tools you use such that the potential client of yours could use the same tool to align the two teams before engaging? So we're usually using Jira as the tool for discovery and for the requirements investigation. And at the same time, you have Confluence inside Jira, which often structured as Google Docs, but it has some additional features. In terms of like straight comparison, the project to project, I would say that like most of the companies that are coming from same region and they have like same level of establishment, they would be using like same tools. So for example, we're using Figma for the UI and UX design. And I'm sure that like a lot of agencies out there that are doing a lot of designers, they are working in Figma as well. In terms of that, two teams before engaging. So I was doing actually last webinar on how to pick development provider before spending any money with them. And I think if you would send an email, we would essentially be sharing the recording of that webinar. And like, I think it's a like huge 30-minute talk on the things that you should focus on and how to compare like two companies or more companies before essentially engaging with them and before spending any money. And you would often get like a very, very nice percentage of successful choosing of them, I would say, which is better, Upwork and a platform or email marketing. So this one, I think, hard one as a question. If you would be able to clarify that, I think I would be able to answer this a bit better as well. Upwork, any platform or email marketing. If you're asking about the tracking things, because you have the tracking software on Upwork as well, and you can track on Upwork too if you're working with freelancers. There are like some hub-style things. Clockify, I know there is one in Jira as well, and you can really find anyone according to the things that you would like to have on the software like that. So yeah, you can just check out the market. We've been using HubStuff for like 3 to 4 years. From time to time, we do also work with freelancers, so it was working well for us too, for taking new projects, finding new, yeah. So in terms of that, I would say that Upwork is a way to go in the first place, depending on your location, obviously. You can do some LinkedIn as well. There are some things on Fiverr, but projects, they're usually smaller, and yeah, there's certain work that you would have to do there. But yeah, I would say that Upwork is LinkedIn is the best, and email is definitely something that you can do if you would be doing like cold outreach to potential companies, potential clients. That might work as well. All right. Do anyone have any more questions? Yes, Angie.
Hi, Stan. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for your webinar and for sharing your experience with us. So you have mentioned a lot about the time trackers, and actually I have one question about your personal attitude to these trackers that, controls every click of the employee. Do you think that it's really works, or it's too much control over the team?
Yeah, I would say I'm using them myself often as well to check the activity and basically being able to track the tasks over a certain period of time, since I like to optimize things and delegate and automate things as well. And speaking of that, if you would see like the report over the last like 2, 3, 4 weeks, you would be able to see like what kind of things you've invested the most time into. And if this is something that can be automated or delegated, then definitely something that you can do. In terms of the employees, with some things, when we are providing engineers as team augmentation service, we're basically forced to do that to give the reports to our clients. I would say it depends on the person. It depends on how you frame them. I don't necessarily see this as an element of like control or being like over like controlling over like some person, like what he's doing and things like that. In the first place, I see that as an optimization tool to improve and iterate over time, improve the processes inside like any type of company, because like this method, it's not only like connected with software, it can be used in any type of company. As Web3 Angie, are you good?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right, sure. As a Web3 developer, do you still work with non-Web3 projects? Yes, we do a lot of healthcare projects, and essentially we have a lot of products that are not connected with blockchain and healthcare. So I would say like these are two niches that we are mostly focused in, but we are working with delivery products, on-demand products. We do certain SaaS marketing platforms. We work in fintech. We work in social applications. So like speaking of custom software development, you can, if the company that you're speaking to have like a solid process in terms of basically breaking the product down and breaking down the approach of how to do everything step by step, they can work in almost any industry to a certain extent of the product. Obviously, if this is something like very, very huge and very, very complex, you would benefit from specialist provider more. But speaking with the custom software development, like ourselves, I think we have experience with most of the industries out there, and we have the process to break down the whole thing to small pieces. And if something is broken down to small pieces, it doesn't really often matter what is the industry of the product. Your company upward profile is the best. Thank you. All right. Any questions? Any more questions? Feel free to tap on reactions and raise hand. We can have an open conversation as well, or you can post the question in the chat. I would wait for like 15 seconds, tell about the small thing that we have for people who stayed till the end of the webinar, and wrap up, since I think I'm 10 to 15 minutes over the time frame already. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it. All right. So in terms of yeah, thank you, Angie. In terms of this like little present, I would say, we would be sending the link to schedule a call with the consultants of the company, and we would be able to provide you like with a full proposal and a certain overview of your product. If you have something to build, or if you have something existing, for free, basically, as the first step, which will provide you with a bit more clarity with the idea that you have, and a bit more clarity in terms of how the process is essentially structured, how to check out like different providers on the marketplace, how to approach the solution from the product, from the engineering point of view, from the market point of view, from the business point of view as well. We will be sending that, sharing that via email. after the webinar. So yep, if you would have any questions, feel free to schedule something, and we will take care of this part. We usually don't do that. We have like certain qualifications to move people forward in the process, but since you stayed, I really appreciate this. We will be sending the recording, the sum up with the link to book that call. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out directly to my email or reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm essentially there as well. I've just sent my email to the chat. If you don't have anything else, I think we can wrap this up. Thank you everyone for being here, and yeah, see you in some time. Thank you. Have a nice end of the day and very, very nice weekend ahead. Thank you. Bye-bye.